What is up, guys? We are back in our video, and today we have the Season 2 adjustment guide for Ironfist. Now, I want to start this guide by giving my first thoughts on basically how the character feels now and whether I think he's still very good and viable, and general thoughts on the actual rework, or not the rework, the big nerfs. And I want to start off by saying he is viable, guys. He is viable. If you are someone that started playing Iron Fist for the very first time after season 1.5, the rework season, this may be a very difficult adjustment for you. It may be very difficult. The reason why is when season 1.5 started taking off with Iron Fist and season 2 came around, everyone's playing Iron Fist. This is when the it's so-called wind tech started becoming normalized in a normal way of playing Iron Fist, where a mechanism of escape isn't usually your kick, it's flying away like this. That became a very common mechanism of escape. Now, people like me, and maybe if you're watching this video, you might be someone who has been playing him a lot in Season 0 and Season 1. He has a very, very, very different playstyle. There is not nearly as much lenience for mistakes. You really can't make mistakes on the Season 0 Iron Fist. You have to play it quite perfectly. And this is leaning it much more towards that. So in one sense, this character does, like, the more I play it and the more I realize what you need to do now, I'm starting to realize that it does require much more skill and tracking of your cooldowns than before. There was a lot of lenience, I will admit this. Before this nerf, there was a lot of lenience. And there's a lot of, get out of jail free cards you had just by being a bit too tanky and just flying away, which was a pretty easy movement, right? So it's very playable and it's very viable. So without further ado, let's get into the adjustment guide for how you should be playing it now versus before. So the first thing I want to talk about is using your kick to escape versus your flurry punches. Now, previously, what you do is you dive a target, and you block, let's say you get 300 overhealth, but there's 4 of them, you want to get out. You would just fly away. You just fly away. Now, if you're starting to play Iron Fist for the first time this season, and you try to do that, you might be like, oh, I gotta go back to only using my kick. No. No. You can still save your kick. This is very important. This is something that, again, Iron Fist had a lot of lenience for mistakes, and so people didn't need to do a lot of things that we had to do in Season 0, like tracking your jumps. Let's say you're above a bridge right here, right? And you're going to dive a target. You're going to dive this robot. Now, you might just, dive like this, blah, 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 get your angle, dive. You just used 2 of your jump charges, but you don't care, because by the time you block, blah, blah, you're not even going to use your jumps. You're just going to fly out. Now it's very, very different. You want to always monitor your jump charges as much as you can because you can escape with them, utilizing your flurry punches as well. So what I mean by that is, let's say you go for your dive, but you save your jumps. You go for your dive, you walk down with your dive, you start your dive. Now, whether you jump around the target or not depends on what the healer is. If it's a Mantis, there's no point jumping around. You want to try to block the freeze because you really, the sleep, you really need to save your jumps now. If it's a Luna, you don't really have a choice. You have to jump around to avoid the freeze unless you prefer to block it. If she's isolated, blocking it might be the play. If she's not isolated, you want to jump around. But if you save your jumps and then you block and you need to escape, you have 2 options now. Well, really you have 3, but you have 2. Let me just turn this on for a second. So what you could do is, you're on the target, you jump like this, and you actually just use your jumps to get away. Now, this is, again, what requires more thinking, because you want to dive a target, and when you're diving, you need to look around the dive location and see where your exit will be. This is, again, how you would play Season 0 Iron Fist, and if you played a lot of Season 0 Iron Fist, this may not be much of a adjustment for you. But you need to always, again, you need to track more things than you did in the previous season. So this character is becoming harder to play. That is an absolute fact. For example, if you're diving from a bridge right here, you might think as you're going for your dive, this is my escape. You go for your dive. You land the kill with your kick because you do want to use the kick if you can land the kill. And then they turn and you don't want to dive. You use your jumps and you get away. The second option is you could weave 3 jumps into your flurry punches to maintain a solid portion of the flurry flying. So what I mean by that is, let's say you plan to use your flurry punches to escape. Take into account you have a maximum of 3 jumps for your flurry. Think of it as a 3-jump movement. You dive your target, you block, you want to get out, flurry, up like this, 1, jump, jump. See how quickly you can get up, but once your jumps are out, now you're going to move slow. If your plan was to just fly up, previously you do this. No, you just fly up like this. Look at how slow that is now. You're very slow. You're like a rock. Now you want to do this, jump, and you want to weave your jumps into it, but you only have 3. You only have 3. So you want to start with 1 jump, and then jump, and jump again. And now you're up much quicker. So those are your 2 options. Just using your jumps, if you feel like it's not urgent, and you don't have to flurry punch away, because maybe you didn't even need to use your block, by the way. It's possible. So it really depends on the situation. The third option is the kick, and that's if you just... That's like a last resort. You do still have 2 options, but again, if you are planning your dive very carefully, and you're looking at your exit routes, and you're looking at the location of the healer, because you need to be very cautious of your actual dive now. If you're looking at the location of the healer, and you know your exit, you see a quick exit, you may not need to use your kick, and that's what you want to go for. Now, the kick is 10 seconds versus 12 in Season 0, so using the kick as an escape is not as costly, right? But this character, it requires a lot more patience now. So you go for your dive, right? And all of them turn on you. Maybe it's a map where there isn't really a close place to get out. Then you'd want to use your kick. But, whether you kick back to the front line or to the side and in cover. So now we're on to the next big difference from Season 0 to this season. And it's pre-reworked Iron Fist. What Iron Fist players would do is the rotation of kicking back to the front line was not always what you do. Reworked Iron Fist, you would do this all the time. You dive the target, you kick back to the front line, and you pummel the tanks. Now, you can still do it, but you need to think about whether that's the right choice or not now. Because you are not nearly as tanky. You are not as tanky. And your get out of jail free card, you can't just fly out. You can't just fly out of the fight. So if you go back to the front line and you're about to die, well, you're in the front line with no kick, no block, you're pummeling tanks. You need to be cautious. And so you need to think, okay, is the right choice kicking to the front line, or based off their comp, based off their back line? Should I kick to the nearest cover, meditate, get back in a high ground wall run position, and dive again? That is something you need to think about now, is where you're actually going to dive to. Is how you're going to dive. No, sorry, not that. This is the next thing you want to think about, is do you want to kick back to the front line, or do you want to kick to the sidelines? And do you want to dive the same target again after meditating and waiting a couple seconds for your block, scouting out the area? Because, guys, this character, you need a lot more patience now. You really do. You need to do a lot. You can't just do the free walking through the middle, blocking, getting 450 overhealth, pummeling tanks, flying over them quickly to the back line, pummeling the back line, and then kicking out, and then wall running up, and then it's a lot harder to do that now. It is a lot harder to do that. Like the way, because I've played a bunch of games already since the season started, and I've been adjusting pretty well, because to me this is just, it's kind of like a return to form in a way. A return to the assassination playstyle, but without the damage, which does suck. I would prefer Season 0 Iron Fist over this any fucking day, because you have 30% more damage to squishies, and you're only a little bit less tanky. I would prefer that any day. But we have to make do with what we have. And so I'm playing much more of the assassination playstyle. Lot slower, a lot more calculated. You have to be more calculated, you have to be slower, and you have to meditate before every fight. Make use of all your tools you have. So guys, the biggest takeaways here. You need to be meditating before every fight. Every single fight that you can. Patience, patience, patience. Meditate, get that overhealth, give you that extra chance of survival. You need to be doing these things now, because the character's a lot harder to play. There's much less lenience. Second thing, tracking your jumps and being exceptionally cautious of your jump charges. If you don't need to use a jump charge, don't use it. If you're diving the back line, there's no need to jump like this. There's no need to do it and waste your... That's a form of escape you need to save. Don't waste your jump charges. Do not do it. If you can, save it. If they're not looking at you, why are you wasting your jumps? Then you go into the back line, and the next pointer, again, when you use your flurry punches, think of your flying escape as a 3-jump movement. 1, 2, 3. And then you're like a rock. You have 3. 1, 2, 3. You have 3 jumps to get out. And then again, using your kick to escape to the front line versus jumping to the sides. So, guys, just look, it's going to be workable. You're just going to have to adjust to the new play style, which is a lot more calculated, a lot more careful. But he's not bad. He is not bad. He is definitely still viable, especially with Ultron. I'm curious to see how that works. But overall, guys, he is very viable. You just need to go back to the more... You need to play like you're more like an assassin. Even though Season 0 was more like an assassin than it is now, you do need to play a lot more like that. I'm going to release a more thorough guide in a couple of days, but this is just a quick, brief adjustment guide to get you guys your feet on the ground and ready to start playing right away. And things to keep in mind as you play your future games. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, turn the bell for notifications so you can see when my next video is. Join the Discord. I do have a lot of people in there. We talk a little bit about a lot of different things, including the new patch and all that, as well as memberships. I did launch channel memberships. I have thinking about having some membership goals as we increase memberships. Hopefully that happens. We're up to 20 right now, which is awesome. But anyways, guys, as always, take care.